Hi and welcome everyone. I'm so excited to be speaking with Lanie Smith. Lanie is just an amazing creator. I've been in your the ball, the Wealth Creators Ball. Has been super inspiring. You have such an amazing way of talking about what does it mean to embody wealth. And not only that, but it's like you're all about the creativity and the genius and really tapping into who you really are. And so I'm really excited to get into this conversation because it's super potent. And as I've been listening to you, it's you speak about it in a way unlike really anyone else that I've heard before. So
thank you for that reflection.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm curious, if you don't mind, I always start with the question of, okay, what was your journey to get to this point, your own personal journey?
Yeah, it's funny. I have a podcast, if you want to call it that, but it's a YouTube channel, and I just had this conversation recently on the Wealthy Creative Show where it's like, that is a very challenging question to answer, because in some ways I feel when we're on this soul's path, when we're following our soul-led adventure, for me, it feels like it started in the womb or before the womb, but it's like every piece of the puzzle, if you will, has shaped who I am, why I'm here, what I do, how I do it. And it's just a continual evolution and spiral. As far as some of my human journey and like what that has been, I've really been a seeker, a searcher, someone just like looking for truth from a very, very young age. And so I started into the realm of spirituality and psychology and all of that probably in high school. But I felt like I was someone looking around and wondering what is going on? What are we? Where are we? Even well before that. And so that kind of curiosity, I think, just shaped my interest in the world, interest in humans and humanity and artists and what we as humans create. And as an entrepreneur, that, kind of inspired my interest in what that has to do with wealth building and how the art of business supports the art of evolution and vice versa. And so really just treating entrepreneurship as this sacred thing, this sacred canvas, as you would have probably heard me say, because every expansion that we want to experience in our life and business is going to require something of us. So we are the art and the artist, as is our business, and it's this interdependent relationship.
Yeah. And so that's really interesting because I feel like, so I know for myself, I have an artist background as well. And so have this deep love and connection with art. But I know that for me, it's really only until recently that I've realized like, oh, okay, that art and business can come together. It's not these separated things. And so how do you teach people in terms of, I'm sure you work with many different types of people, not just artists, and maybe working with artists, it's maybe quicker for them to catch on to what it is that you teach. But when you're working with somebody that doesn't have a background in art, or maybe struggles in connecting to that creative, playful side, because as you have in your title here, a spiritual PlayMaster. I'm going to add the banner now. I forgot to put it on there. Yeah, can you talk about that?
Yeah, so it's interesting because in a previous life, I was an art therapist, and it still very much comes through a lot of my work now because it's just a tool in the toolbox. But you asked me about my journey, and I feel like there's the there's the version that already knew a lot, and then there's the version that's like seeking to learn more. And so in that pursuit of wanting to learn more, understand more, and that just entire journey of kind of coming into your professional role in the world, the art therapy was the path that I took. And so in that experience, when I came out of like graduate school and internships and self-study and all these different facets, one of the roles that I played was an educator, because I I did, kind of like what do they call it, practicum and stuff once you've graduated. But the whole time I was doing my work, I was always teaching people about what I do, because it was
Mm.
foreign to a lot of people. I mean, I would say I'm an art therapist, and they would say, "Oh yeah, like on CSI," like somebody's sketching out. I forget what they call that, but it's like a psychologist or something that might be sketching out what they saw happening, and I'm like, "No, no, not that," and so I would have to explain. Kind of like what art therapy was. And the thing about it is that there's also, like anything, many different facets of one particular area. So somebody who's unfamiliar with something like that, they're probably just going to lump it into this, but there's actually many variations of that one thing. So for a good majority, like as soon as I started my business, my marketing was educating and vice versa. And so what I found is that I attracted people who were really, if you've ever heard of the artist way, I'm sure you have as a creative, she talks about shadow artists. And so I attracted a lot of shadow artists because they saw me as the artist, they saw me as the creative, but I was just holding a place in their psyche, right? Like they have this aspect of them too. It's just untapped. And so it was true that I attracted some creatives and artists in the early parts of my career, but a lot of them were um, helping professionals and
Mm.
other counselors, therapists, doctors, physical therapists, etc. People in the helping profession, but that wanted more of their own creativity to come forth. So they wouldn't necessarily consider themselves artists. And what I found was the artists were actually more challenging to work with, because they had an idea of what their art should look like. And that actually interrupted the art and the creative process for just the exploration of it, to use the art to bring any kind of uh, limiting beliefs and uh, toxic thinking and that kind of thing to the surface. It was like they were very defended in that way. And so more often than not, I find that who's attracted to me wouldn't necessarily call themselves artists. The artists are attracted to me too, but not necessarily for like to hire me to support them in being more creative, because they're already
Mm.
they're already creative. And so the people that tend to be attracted to me, and especially now as a spiritual business mentor, are people that want to be more playful. They want to bring more creativity to their business. They want to get out of whatever this stuffy box is that they've been living as an entrepreneur, because they thought that's how it should be done. And what tends to happen is when we uncage that creative expression, the income just quantum leaps, because they're being more of themselves, and that's just magnetic.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, that's so powerful. I hope
Mm.
people really hear that and get that, because it's interesting. I mean, even with, like you were saying, with the artists, I could see where the blocks would be, because maybe, artists, they become masters at their craft, and so they end up becoming more product oriented, like more concerned about
Mhm.
having a finished, beautiful piece, whereas you're saying, like, break out of that. Like, I don't care if it looks ugly, or you know, like you were, in your wealth, creators ball, one of the comments, like, use ketchup if you want, like, I don't care, you know, um, to allow ourselves to be as wild and as creative as we want. And so you talk about this, you have this phrase, this term, wild wealth, which is so interesting because for me, as you know, I'm new in entrepreneurship. My background is in teaching and art, and so now I'm going into entrepreneurship. And so having been online and like looking at different coaches, and you know, everyone's talking strategy and this and that, and it all feels like, you know, you got to do it this way. You know? And I have to say that personally, that's been super challenging because there's some strategies I'm like, that doesn't really, like, okay, I can do that. I can make myself do those things. But in my body, it feels, well, it feels stressful. There's moments where it feels inauthentic. Hard to be inspired with it, right? So 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 yeah, maybe talk a little bit about there's, I guess there's the spectrum of, you know, being too much in the box and restrictive versus like having absolutely no boundaries. Like you don't want either. So there's like some middle way, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And you would hear a lot of the industry speak about it through masculine and feminine.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of the way I've always looked at it, it was through the lens of Taoism and Buddhism. And I didn't really know about like the energetics of masculine and feminine through a business realm, meaning I didn't um, study that somewhere, but I kind of was living them in the sense of this is my art. I want to share my art with the world. At this time, it's going to look like private practice because I'm still an art therapist. But as soon as I saw scripts, as soon as I saw how to's, as soon as I saw like this is how to do it, because I had that artist background, it never occurred to me like I have to do it like this. It was like this is a template, and then I have the permission to move it around in any form that I want. These are just the ingredients. The same way if I pick up a recipe book, I'm very unlikely to cook it the way they tell me to. I will use it for inspiration, but I'm an intuitive cook the same way I'm an intuitive painter. So I'm not going to, yeah, I'm gonna look at the ingredients. I'm gonna see like, do I have that? Do I have that? Wait, I have a replacement for that. That will actually work, but I'm not gonna cut that. You know, like I'm just gonna do it the way I want to do it. And as soon as because I have fallen out of that place at times. And when I did, it was because there had maybe been a dip in my income or a dip in my business. And instead of holding the tension, the creative tension of like what is going to shift this, I looked outside myself and wanted to test that out. Now, I never make that wrong because, you know, artists gain inspiration from all different places. I could take a course, I could fly to Thailand, whatever. I was still going to find my answer wherever I choose, whatever direction. All paths lead to Rome when you're in your purpose work. So it's not like I didn't make the choice wrong. And I definitely, you know, like gather codes, if you will, from different places. But it will never work for me the same way it wouldn't work for any other creative to just follow that person's formula. They would need to make it their own. They would need to look at it the same way you look at a recipe book and like, okay, what about this does work for me? What does align with my values? Because if it doesn't align with your values, one, you're probably not going to do it very long. And two, you're definitely not going to enjoy it. And even in an artist who is stretching themselves, it might not feel comfortable all the time, but they're not going to be, there's still some part of them that can't not do it, like that can't create, that can't not create because it's a calling. You're
Right.
still going to be called to do it, but in this kind of artist of business perspective and lens, you're looking at how can I play with these ingredients. And if I just don't have it, let's use the example of cooking. It's like, and if I don't have a taste for Brussels sprouts, I'm not going to cook with Brussels sprouts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So like if you go back to business, it's like I'm not going to put in XYZ if I actually really don't want that to be part of my business. Whatever that is. It could be scripts, like, you know, some people have appointment setters.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
could be really just anything. It's like anything that just doesn't feel like a fit for you at this time. And that doesn't necessarily mean it won't be for you later. I can't tell you how many things I've done where I'm like, who is this person now? Like, I didn't think I would ever like have some of the automations and things that I have, because that wasn't right for me at that time, but it
Time.
is now. Yeah.
So really, I'm curious, like at what point in your journey, uh, I mean, could you say there was maybe a light bulb moment where you were just like, oh yeah, I need to give myself permission to use the word tastes, to give myself permission to what I want or how I want to do things.
Mm.
Um, was there a moment when you had that realization, or did you always just have that knowing of like, because some people do. Some people are just innately the creative
Yeah.
level, right? Like they're always gonna, you know, do it their own way. So I'm curious if there was there.
Yeah. I think it's a mixed bag, because I think that in some ways I'm, what do they say, like claircognizant. You know, there's just like this depth of knowing, without, and I think most people have that, but it's conditioned. And when it's conditioned out of you, there's a disconnect from that deep knowing and that deep creative self. And that's the work. Like that's the beauty of, like I said, sacred business, and using your business as a sacred canvas. It's like you're continuously coming back to the parts of you that you disconnected to fit in or feel safe or whatever the experience was. And so in some ways, yes, I absolutely already knew that, like, this is just because I kind of knew that I wanted to be in my own private practice as soon as I could be. So at that 2 year mark, I was like, okay, we're going. And in that experience, I didn't know a lot about um, private practice per se, but I do feel like I was entrepreneurial spirited. And so it had me really interested, really curious. The same way an artist might just want to learn everything they can about acrylics. It's like I wanted to learn everything I could about ways to get in front of more people and ways to share XYZ. Now, this is a local business at the time, brick and mortar, so I wasn't even online at that time. And so that was very fun for me to like find creative ways to get in front of people, whether it was free workshops or mini retreats, things like that. And then to answer your question, there was a knowing of how I wanted to do a lot of things. But then when I wanted to expand into territories that I didn't know anything about, which was like premium packaging and high ticket
Mhm.
sales and that kind of thing, I I did two business things kind of like around the same time. And I immediately saw, so this kind of goes back to that clear what did I say? Cognizance. Yeah, I was about to say clairsentience, and I was like, nope, wrong one. But yeah, the claircognizance, like I immediately knew inside this program that there was something for me here, but it wasn't what I thought it was. And that's the other cool thing about living your life as this, kind of sacred experiences with your soul leading, is like our mind will think we're going into different places for all sorts of reasons, but you don't need to know why you're there. You just need to know you're there and
Mm.
that it's perfect that you're there. And so I started looking around, and it was kind of eye opening how stiff, how structured, how masculine, how boring for me it was. And so they were giving us creative prompts, but like zero materials. So I was like using my lipstick to do my creative activity, and like a little bit fuming inside of like, what is this? Like I don't like this experience, but then recognizing, oh yeah, this is perfect. This is showing me exactly what is needed and why my work is so important in the world. And many of the people in that program ended up becoming my clients because, first of all, that particular coach retired and that was no more. And also, there was just this simultaneous unfolding of what the business world needed. And you were asking me at one time about my journey. There's one really pivotal moment that I remember because I was still leading my team of therapists. I was still in private practice. I was still, doing kind of offline local work primarily. But had started this program I'm telling you about. And then I was simultaneously reading Conscious Capitalism. And there was just this one, I don't know if it was a sentence or a chapter or what, but it was just like doors flew open in my brain and was just like, I could see the future in that moment. I could see like, wow, I'm a therapist now and I'm not going to be a therapist for long. And it was something much bigger than me. It wasn't coming from my ego. It wasn't coming from like, oh, I'm so tired of being a therapist. Or, I had some of those periods like touching burnout, but this was almost like a divine experience that matched my human experience.
Right. And so would you say that this, I mean, you brought up the word conscious capitalism, which to me, when I look at you and I look at what you're putting out there, there's this expression of the divine feminine, the goddess, and what do I want to say? So like, I see you as like a new earth, like one of those leaders that are bringing in the new earth. I imagine that's, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but is that what kind of drives you, is like in the spirit of play, like what more can be created on the planet when you work with people, one-on-one or in your group programs? Is that part of the story and the inspiration that makes you want to do what you do?
Yeah, and just to clarify, you mean like the actual connection, the new earth connection? Is
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So as a therapist in training, I was very much studying eco art therapy and environmental therapy. And really, it's strange to say, but it was newer for me. Even though I had this innate love for nature, I didn't have this intellectualized, and this is kind of why. I didn't have the macro. I just had my little child experience, of like, I like to be outside, whatever. It was kind of simple. But as I was studying, I really started making sense of, like just why there's so many things not working in the world. And because of our disconnect from nature, because of disconnect, not just from our natural like ways of being, but also the earth itself, and not recognizing that we're so as within, so without. And so when we're not taking care of that which is around us, we're inadvertently hurting and harming ourselves. So of course we're going to have things like depression and anxiety, and all of these symptoms are just a reflection of disconnection from self. And we are just as much nature as nature is us. So in a sense, there is this call to reconnect with nature, but really more and deeply than that, it's to reconnect with ourselves, because when we're in connection with ourselves, we're not going to see the separateness between
Right.
us and nature. So obviously we're going to be a steward of that when that's true.
Absolutely. Yeah, as within, so without, right? Absolutely. So the other question I wanted to ask before we hop off is, so what is, if you can if you can put it in a nutshell, and I know that each client that you work with is different, but maybe you can share a story of, what is the process that you take someone through to break through to these new levels of wealth and abundance? Like what can someone expect to discover and experience and all of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's really different and individuated for everyone, but there is kind of a skeleton, if you will, in terms of the frame, because all of the clients that I've worked with in some way or another, whether they get to that place, like that final place that they want to be at within our work or not, is, because I'm thinking back to decades now,
Mhm.
is it's about stripping down. Now, for some people, that stripping down happens pretty quickly because they're not as attached to it, depending on levels of trauma, background, family, all the things, right? And when that stripping down starts to happen, then we're able to actually see what is it that's really alive here? What is the pulse of vitality asking for that 9 times out of 10 we're overriding when we're disconnected from ourself and nature and our creative spirit and that divine flow. There's something that we're overriding because it threatens our sense of current self. A lot of the work that I'm doing with people is identity work. Now, this is all process, so it's not as important. I don't speak about it that often, in terms of, I don't know, if you happen upon my Instagram page or you happen upon my Facebook page or something, you don't hear me talking that much about identity work, but really that's what's happening, because the person that comes to me wants to 10 times their income, create their first or next 7-figure year, but they're not actually the person to be that yet.
Right.
So our process is actually dismantling the identity that's preventing that from happening right now. And it can happen really fast. The clients that it happens really fast for are because they're kind of like getting in the passenger seat and letting the divine drive. And it gets to be really fast and playful when that happens. I have had clients where they're still madly in love with the process, but they did choose to take a bit longer because it's kind of like, I don't know, I just see this gripping, it's like holding on for dear life. And they don't necessarily want to let themselves be seen in their creative power yet.
Mm.
And so that's actually been a large part of my work over the last couple of years, is because I have a love for like all people and want to see them step into that big possibility. There have been times where I've kind of struggled, and you would have heard me probably talk about this in the Wealth Creators Ball too. I've struggled at times to let the kind of former clients go, in terms of, we're always kind of shifting and evolving. So your dream client today might not be the same dream client next year. And so as I was evolving, I could outgrow different levels, for example, of clients or entrepreneurs or whatever. And that's been a challenge because it's like I can see where they are, I can see where they want to go, and I know that this can be really fast. But if that client doesn't want it to be as fast, then it can just slow things down a bit. And so that's been a big edge for me, like a creative edge that I've been navigating this year, in just allowing I talked about automations and that kind of thing. It's like once upon a time I was only interested in that just like that really intimate one-to-one, and it could be group as well, like hybrid approach. But I just didn't care anything about automations. I didn't care anything about kind of that online digital thing. But we grow and evolve, and now I'm just so grateful that I have some of the digital things that I do to meet that client that wants to maybe take her time a little bit more than the faster, intimate stuff.
Right. So there's different entry points where people can meet and work with you.
Yeah. And I know I feel like I meandered there a bit, so I may or may not have answered your question. I kind of forgot. I got on a tangent.
I forgot the question too. It's okay. Oh, well, it was the process. What do you take?
Process. Yeah.
Through to, and what did they end up experiencing? So what I heard was really just the key point is, someone that wants to 10 times their income, they need to become that person. As long as they're not, if their identity isn't there yet, so you kind of go through this dismantling and recreating of that. Um, so, before we hop off, is there anything else that you want to share as far as like what you're offering right now to the public? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And just a little caveat about our process discussion. It's not all dismantling, because that can happen really quick if somebody is already very clear in their desire and they know that they absolutely want to do, the income expansion from their unique and creative genius. It's like that dismantling, because it sounds really heavy to the
Right.
mind, but it can.
Just strip me naked
Yeah.
and leave me there. Like,
Yeah.
what do I do
Yeah.
now?
Yeah, but it actually is, sometimes it's like really fast and easy and playful, as much as we're talking about in the Wealth Creators Ball. It's like I have clients who are just, painting and dancing and playing in the mud, and it's not this big heavy deconstructivism. But it is technically still an identity shift of like, I'm now the person that's going to charge, $1,000 for this instead of $100 for this, or 10,000 for this instead of, whatever the number is. So it's like just getting yourself in your body fully on board with the true taste, the new taste, whatever that is. And it's always evolving. So yeah, we are actually finishing the Wealth Creators Ball this week. So that is a beautiful 5-day complimentary program for anybody that's wanting to step into 6-figure and multi 6-figure months and do it from a place of everything we've been talking about, which is deep presence, divine connection, relation to self, nature, play, power, pleasure. And actually, the person that I'm co-hosting that event with, we have 2 things coming up. We have a euphoric, spelled YOU, millionaire affair, and we also have Wild Wealth Retreat in Italy. And I have my amazing supervision mastermind body group for those wanting that ongoing support. And yeah, lots of links and things for people to explore and play and find me. If anything speaks to you, I'm always happy to answer questions.
Yeah. So people can send you a message on Facebook or, and so are those offers available on your Facebook, or not Facebook, your coaching page, your website, or would they
No,
find?
actually, no, the website will take you to my store, and the website will take you to book a call. But I'm like what do they call it? A maniacal creator. So I'm continuously creating things. So I have things that are up, and then
Yeah.
I have things that are kind of on pop up. And so
Yeah.
we don't have the retreat or the 6-week program that I mentioned, the Millionaire Affair, up yet. So you can definitely private message me for those. They'll be going up within the next week. Um, but anything else is on my link tree. So Instagram is kind of the place to go for the latest menu. And then if you want to explore different things, website and store are there too.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I hope that those that watch this live stream got some inspiration and kind of got a sense of what's possible. And yeah, I just, again, like, I love your energy and your approach to creativity and business, and
Mm.
giving that your soul full permission to play out as big as she wants. And
Yeah.
yeah, so thank you so much. I
Awesome.
just honor you,
Yeah.
and yeah, really
Thank you,
appreciate it.
Tanya. Lovely to be here.
All right. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you.
Take care.